Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Resilience in Action, the power of inclusive insurance transforming communities. GIIF created this space to highlight the ideas and voices shaping the future of inclusive insurance and climate resilience, and to explore how these efforts are helping build stronger, more resilient communities in the face of climate change. To kick things off, we're joined by Dr. Astrid Zwick, co-director of the Global Shield Secretariat. Dr. Zwick has been at the forefront of advancing climate and disaster risk finance, supporting countries and communities in shifting from reactive crisis response to proactive resilience building. Dr. Astrid, it's such a pleasure to have you with us, and I'd like to start by asking, what's on your mind right now? And what would you like us to explore together in this conversation?
Hello, my name is Astrid Zwick. I'm co-director of the Global Shield Secretariat. In this conversation, I would like to explore some of the key issues shaping climate and disaster risk, finance, and insurance today. And I also want to focus on why this is a pivotal moment for scaling up resilience, and how the Global Shield is working with countries to put climate-vulnerable communities at the center. And what are the innovative approaches we are seeing in practice, from inclusive insurance and also gender-responsive solutions to new forms of collaboration. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Dr. Astrid, thank you again for joining us. The Global Shield has made remarkable progress since its launch, but the world continues to change rapidly, with shifting global priorities and increasing climate pressures. From your perspective, why is this moment particularly critical for scaling up climate and disaster risk finance, especially for vulnerable countries and communities?
Well, we are at a turning point where the impacts of climate change are no longer abstract projections. They are visible, they are frequent, and they are devastating, especially for the world's most vulnerable communities. Loss and damage is intensifying, and the call for urgent, equitable action has never been louder. So it's clear that we need a shift from a reactive crisis response to a proactive risk management, and ultimately resilience or resilience management with prearranged finance as a cornerstone. Well, the Global Shield embodies this new paradigm shift, focusing on inclusive, country-driven processes that start with what climate-vulnerable countries truly need, rather than a top-down approach. It brings together a wide array of stakeholders to co-create solutions that are timely, that are sustainable, and that are fit for purpose. In Costa Rica, for example, the government is actively working with the Global Shield to institutionalize prearranged finance in light of climate and disaster risks as a core element of national planning. Through the Global Shield process in the country, Costa Rica has identified its priority areas, including the enhancement of technical capacity, for example, to increase insurance penetration, among many other solutions. Climate and disaster risk finance and insurance can make a real difference here, and early coordinated action can unlock scalable and durable protection for vulnerable people and communities.
That's fascinating, Dr. Astrid. It really highlights how urgent and nuanced the challenge is, and I'm particularly struck by the idea of prearranged finance being institutionalized at the national level, like in Costa Rica. It makes me wonder how these approaches translate on the ground in countries with different capacities and needs. And with that in mind, GIIF has been actively involved in Global Shield countries like the Philippines, Senegal, and Madagascar, offering technical assistance and innovative risk finance solutions. What emerging risk finance solutions have you observed, And how can partners like GIIF leverage these insights to strengthen interventions and deliver tangible protection for low-income and climate-vulnerable groups across the Global Shield portfolio?
Well, while sovereign risk finance remains a key entry point, the real frontier lies in scaling inclusive insurance solutions that reach individuals and communities. We see in many Global Shield countries that micro and meso-level insurance market are nascent. What's needed now is a deep investment in capacity building, for example, in regulatory frameworks that are appropriate, and in financial literacy of the customers. Inclusive insurance should not replace sovereign schemes, but it should complement them. It should create a more holistic and sustainable approach. Multi-stakeholder partnerships can play a pivotal role because they support innovation, they incentivize insurers, and they explore alternative mechanisms like remittances, for example, to subsidize premiums. A promising example we found in the Gambia, where remittance flows, which make a third of the annual GDP, by the way, remittance flows from the diaspora are potentially being explored as a financing mechanism for inclusive insurance for the family members that stay back home. Similarly, partnerships like the one between Democrats and ADA highlight how technology can bridge the gap between affordability and access for marginalized, vulnerable population groups. GIIF could, for example, support these partner countries in integrating this information into its technical assistance.
You mentioned the Gambia and Democrats, which highlight how inclusive insurance and innovative financing can make a real difference for communities. How do you think partners like GIIF can strengthen collaboration within Global Shield countries to increase their impact? And what platforms or mechanisms does Global Shield use to keep partners informed about evolving country-level activities and priorities?
Effective collaboration starts with a good coordination, and that's where the Global Shield's coordination hub plays a vital role. By embedding itself in country-level processes, and particularly during the request for support phase, that's a phase where the country submits its list of its analyzed needs and gaps, the coordination hub ensures that partners have a clear line of sight into the evolving priorities of the country. And also where each of their strengths can make a difference in a complementary way. The coordination hub doesn't just facilitate alignment, it's a source for actively identifying synergies. It convenes the relevant actors, and it channels insights across the Global Shield ecosystem. This coordination means being plugged into a live iterative process like the in-country process of the Global Shield, is contributing at critical junctures to shape and to complement and ultimately to scale the in-country work. One of the Global Shield financing vehicles, the World Bank's Global Shield Financing Facility, is a member indeed of the coordination hub, and GIIF can leverage this and stay connected in how to contribute to scaling support in Global Shield countries, especially in countries where it is also involved. In particular, this coordination was already reflected in the in-country process which we conducted in Senegal. Here, GIIF is engaged in supporting CNAS, the National Agricultural Insurance Company, in expanding protection.
That example in Senegal really illustrates the value of coordinated, country-led action. How do you see that same approach being applied to advance gender-responsive solutions, particularly for women farmers and entrepreneurs?
This is a very, very important topic. Women, particularly those in rural and agricultural sectors, are disproportionately affected by climate change and climate shocks. But they are also powerful agents of resilience. And in recognizing this, the Global Shield has embedded gender equity across its in-country processes, supported by initiatives like the Center of Excellence for Gender Smart Solutions. The Center of Excellence works across pillars like research, policy guidance, technical assistance, and capacity building. Since 2018, it has supported the training of women insurance supervisors through a leadership and a diversity program for regulators. This was jointly sponsored with the Access to Insurance Initiative and taught by Women's World Banking and Oxford University's Said Business School. These efforts are translating directly into practical and gender-responsive solutions at the country level.
Thank you, Dr. Astrid. This has been such an insightful discussion. As we start to wrap up, the way those gender-responsive initiatives are taking shape through research, policy, and training really shows how comprehensive the Global Shield's approach has become. Looking ahead, as the initiative gains momentum, what country-level breakthroughs, partnerships, or policy reforms give you hope for the future? And how can the private sector and technical partners help sustain this progress?
For me, what's most encouraging is seeing that countries move from project-level experimentation and rhetoric to actively institutionalizing climate and disaster risk finance now. Let's take the Gambia. The Gambia's establishment of an inclusive insurance market development committee, as well as in Costa Rica and also Pakistan's mainstreaming of climate and disaster risk finance and insurance into national planning as part of the Global Shield in-country process are not one-offs, but they are signs of a shift to a more proactive change. Well, to sustain this, the private sector must continue being a source of innovation, not just as product providers, but as solution developers that engage with the regulators, with the communities, and with the governments. Capacity building is key, and efforts like inclusive insurance training programs are essential to ensure that the ecosystem grows with shared standards and ambition. Encouragingly, the Self-Employed Women's Association, with the support of InsurTech Blue Marble, has pioneered an innovative heatwave insurance initiative to address the urgent needs of women workers in the informal sector. And they provide them with the necessary support to cope with extreme heat and build resilience against its impact.
As we come to the end of our conversation, Dr. Astrid, you've painted such a clear picture of how coordination, inclusion, and gender-responsive approaches are shaping the Global Shield's impact at the country level. Based on your experience across both the Global Shield and the wider inclusive insurance space, where do you think development partners like GIIF can bring the most added value, particularly in countries with ongoing workstreams or legacy projects in climate and disaster risk finance?
As Global Shield countries deepen their climate and disaster risk finance and insurance ecosystems, I believe that the focus should be on building inclusive insurance markets that work in tandem with national systems and that will empower local private sectors. This means supporting product innovation. It also means fostering partnerships between insurers and development actors, and also strengthening the policy environment so that inclusive insurance is both viable and sustainable in climate vulnerable countries. Well, we see that insurance is not a silver bullet, but it should be integrated as a key part of a holistic risk management and risk reduction framework. So it is possible to reach its potential in protecting the lives of those vulnerable people and communities that need it most.
And that was Dr. Astrid Zwick, co-director of the Global Shield Secretariat, sharing her perspectives on the shift from crisis response to proactive resilience. We heard how inclusive insurance can play a transformative role, why partnerships matter, and how some specific countries are already embedding climate and disaster risk finance into their national planning. This conversation is just the beginning, and we look forward to continuing it in future episodes, where we will dive deeper into lessons learned, breakthroughs, and new opportunities for collaboration. Dr. Astrid, before we close, is there anything you'd like to add or any final message you'd like to share with our listeners?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share my insights. Yes, it's encouraging to see countries like Costa Rica, the Gambia, and Pakistan that are starting to integrate climate and disaster risk finance into their national planning, and to recognize how inclusive insurance can strengthen the protection at the community level. We strongly believe that investing in local capacity and fostering innovation, as well as ensuring the inclusion of women and vulnerable groups, are all essential to making sure no one is left behind. Through the Global Shield and its partners and the entire ecosystem, we have a real unique opportunity to drive this agenda forward and to turn the promise of resilience into a reality for those who need it most.
Nothing to add. On behalf of GIIF, thank you for listening.